because one or the other has to do with the person in connection with the entire universe and nature, whereas the other one has to do with formalities in a building, tithe offerings, and narrow-minded. And unfortunately for the African child, when we accepted Christianity, we swallowed the plastic plus the bread, instead of maybe taking the content and removing the branding itself. Now Christianity has to do with dressing, with fashion, with music, with literally Eurocentric formalities, which have nothing to do with spirituality and connectivity to the divine other. But it has become actually institutionalized. I'm a Methodist, I'm a Catholic, I'm an Adventist, I'm a Presbyterian, I'm Episcopal, and in the midst of this Christian quagmire, we've built more walls than we've built more bridges. So I think the first problem is that we have accepted Eurocentric colonial methodology of Christianizing us, which has nothing to do with our spiritual expression. And African religions are even better, because they seek to deal with your connectivity to yourself, to your family, to your community, and ultimately to the environment around you and to your God.
Well, give me examples of what you mean. I mean, I hear the statement, but if you can illustrate with specific cases.
I'll start off on the very peripheral edge, where being a Christian has to mean putting on a jacket and a tie and carrying a Bible and walking up to church, having your tithe in your hand, putting some money in an offering plate, and being able to look, as it were, semi-colonized, but in an environment where you're God worshipping. And if you should pick up a Zulu, a Xhosa, or a Pedi, or Tswana, and they come in as they are, from their own traditional corners, into the Christian environment, most likely all the elders are going to be sitting aside for a committee to say, can we help this guy to move him from there? So it almost seems like for you to become Christian, you need to lose yourself first. We need to flush you off from being culturally you. And we clear off everything that is local and ethnic. And so churches for me have become an initiation center for colonialism, because basically you're not allowed to come in there and express yourself as you are, except maybe for Shembe and a little bit of some other indigenous churches. But as for the rest of us, both from music and expression, tithe and offerings, has nothing to do with improving and developing.
Well, you talk about, we mentioned Shembe Church, the ZCC, for instance. Where would they fall in this category?
I will not be very free to castigate and lacerate churches, but if you look at, it's one thing to say we're worshipping a white Jesus in black clothes. It's another thing to say we're worshipping a white Jesus in black clothes. It's another thing to say we're worshipping a black Jesus in black clothes. So I see quite a bit of division right there. That when you deal with colonialism, our education has been colonized. Our economics has been colonized. Our fashion has been colonized. Our religion, even our God, has been colonized. That's what it is all about. My God is stronger than you. That's why I'm overpowering you. And the one who has the economics determines the religion of the people. So when you say we are spoiled for choices, I pick that with a pinch of salt. Poor people don't have much choices, do they?
Well, I'm saying spoiled for choice because people choose, you see, and they are free to do so. And even when they are free to reconsider their options, they still choose the way they do. For instance, as I refer to the story that you're familiar with, where a pastor allegedly raised somebody from the dead, and women have been told that for a fee they can be assisted to find appropriate husbands, and that businesses can be improved. All sorts of things are happening, and it's not only those churches. There are different churches which you say should be decolonized, and people go freely. So there's no one who's compelling people to go to these churches.
There is this famous statement which people love using: Jesus is the answer. I have come up on the contrary to ask, what is the question? Because our people have serious problems. They have economic problems, health problems, and when they go to church, they're not going there for entertainment per se. They have genuine issues that they would want to address with deity. Unfortunately, shenanigans and charlatans have shot into the road quickly, pretending, acting to present and giving solutions to the community. Half the time, if not most of the time, this has become actually a circus of the highest order. Because at the end of the day, the same people who must be assisting us to get solutions are actually pulling out all the resources away from us again and gathering that to themselves. So when you are talking about they have choices, where there's poverty, I want us maybe to just make it slightly philosophical. When I place you in an environment where you have nothing to eat, nothing to, and I only leave you with options of poverty. Religion is actually an option for poverty. The question is, if we had more millionaires on the ground, would we have all of them in church?
Well, I doubt very much.
There you go.
And I saw in one of your social media postings, you say, you know, you'll start the decolonizing process for yourself by doing away with the white image of Jesus Christ.
As of this weekend, actually, I'm banning the white Jesus myself.
Yeah.
I'm not asking anybody else to do it.
Yes.
But I woke up one morning, having worked as a minister for 32 years.
Yes.
And you wake up to discover the picture of Jesus is wrong.
Yeah.
It's actually a whitewashed Hollywood picture. And I don't believe that white guy ever died for any one of us. So that's for me. Yes. I don't know what the rest of the community would say, but for myself, that's wrong. The name Jesus on its own is wrong.
Yeah.
Because the letter J only appeared on our alphabet as of 500 years ago. So even Jesus himself, per se, Yeshua, never had that name being called on him. Then I wake up again and discover the Bible has been edited. There are a couple of books that are missing in the Bible. Another problem. Israel itself becomes another problem. Because they never went anywhere in a boat, and they were never sold as slaves anywhere. As the Bible identifies the Israelites, that they were going to be taken across the seas, they're going to be beaten up, and they're going to be thrown around with buttocks hanging outside, they'll be sold as slaves. Now tell me which nation on the face of the earth fits that description, except for the black people. So when you begin to look at the biblical text more critically, you begin to see the whole colonial facade falling off, that actually the 13th tribe, a book which I can recommend, which was done by Ford, must be read, that the whole concept of the Hebraic Israeli concept, that the Israel are these white guys who are rolling their hands on their side, is not altogether true. The whites have never been Jewish. For all practical purposes, North Africa is not a home for the white people. They have been Europeans. It's only when they went through the civilizations in Europe and into Russia and etc., when they came back through the United Nations in the 1960s, then a state was established, but there's no trace.
Well, obviously that is going to cause serious political
That's why we're
challenges
debating.
to you.
That's why we're debating.
People will challenge you and say, you've got it all wrong, it's distorted history. But for purposes of this conversation and people who, as we speak, are celebrating Good Friday and Easter weekend, who you say do not really have choices, I say they have choices. What do you say to them? If they are listening to you and they believe what you're saying, they say, okay, what must we do now? Because we don't have any option.
It looks like people are stuck. You've been eating a beef story, I can tell you. We go and buy some apples in a shop. We come here during the light, we eat the first apple, we find out there are worms inside. And one of us, who is smarter than the other, says, hey Joshua, we cannot be throwing away good apples. Let's switch off the lights and let's just eat these apples. Why? Because light gives you a problem. Because immediately we remove the light, we can eat the rotten apples. So are we saying that we must not learn because we've already... But anyway, for the purpose of Easter, close the house, call your family inside, rebuild the family structures, and reconfirm what you believe. When we are talking about regenerating us as people, it must not only be a cosmetic regeneration. Start putting a savings plan for your money. Start doing forgiveness ceremonies in your houses. Work on building relationships around your own families. Visit your own children that you've made in the whole bushes around. And let not be for celebrating some foreign little white guy with blue eyes whom you claim to be Jesus, who died on a cross. I'm still waiting for a white man to die for black people.
Now, when you look at the state of the South African spirituality, the moral value system of South Africans generally, we've got so many issues. You know, poverty, crime, violence, and a whole variety of things. What do you think? What do you think can get us out of that? Because at least religion or spirituality plays a useful role in that regard, in strengthening people to face up to life challenges.
Regeneration, for me, if you listen to that word carefully, regeneration, there's a generation inside. Has to be re-establishing a generation. Now, I can almost give you 3 quick generations. With the generations of the blacks, purely black. With the generations of the blacks who have become coconuts. Black on the outside, but white on the inside. Our structure of thinking and education and medicine and everything, purely white. Then we have the white generation. Put these 3 generations together. When you're saying let's regenerate the African, the question is, which one do you want to regenerate?